Welcome to the Intentional Encourager podcast, where each episode brings you compelling conversations and stories designed to entertain, enlighten, and encourage. And now here's your host, Brian Sexton.
And welcome to this special edition of the Intentional Encourager podcast. This is the People Buy From People series. It's my book, People Buy From People. And I'm featuring the endorsers of the book, talking about different chapters in the book. And I am so happy to have this man on this series. He's been a guest on the Intentional Encourager podcast. You can go to his website, getlifeinbalance.com. And I have known Rein for about 15, 16 years and is as consistent and unique of a guy as you will ever find. But again, I wanted him to share his thoughts around the subject of uniqueness. So it's my pleasure to welcome in Rein Kansman. Rein, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And unique is probably the nicest thing people have called me that way.
Well, you are. I remember when I first met you 16 years. I met you in 2005. We both worked for the same corporation, and you came in and did training for us. And I loved what I really loved about you then, and I still love about you now, is the way that you believe that training and development should be presented. I had always been around people that were just, I'm going to give you this information. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You were the first person that I had been around in training and development. At that time, I'd been in sales and food service industry for 10 years. So I'd seen a lot of trainings. You were the first guy that made me think about training differently. And
Wow.
So I wanted to ask you, when you began to do training and development, was uniqueness and making it a unique thing around doing that, was that something that you were intentional about doing, or where did that unique perspective of training and development really start and birth within you?
So that great question. I got a lot of help, certifications, was able to attend. I also got a lot of opportunity to deliver and practice my craft. I think by the time I met you, then I'd been at it for about 17 years. And I can't say that up front. I had hit that kind of that sweet spot for me in delivery. But what I always had was I knew the goal of training was to change behavior. If somebody changed something, if I could provide information, an aha moment, mainly through self-discovery for that individual, and they were able to find more time in their life, be more efficient at something that allowed them to work more effectively, to earn more money, to spend more time with their family, whatever that was, that was a victory for me. And so in doing that, I looked for creative and unique ways to deliver whatever information I had that would allow people to really embed it into their minds.
I love what you said about creating that aha moment, because again, the power of unique people is at times, in some people that are unique deliver their uniqueness in what I would call shock and awe, right? And so they're so unique that it's that blowback moment of, wow, I just met someone so powerfully unique that it's incredible. And then there are people that are subtly unique. It's like, man, I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something different about them. When you were beginning to deliver those trainings and things like that, and you were pulling out those aha moments, did it kind of slap you upside the head, so to speak, kind of V8 moment? Or was it, okay, I realize now that the message that I'm delivering is causing those aha moments? Was it how did those aha moments get realized for you when you started doing training and development?
So hugely impactful aha moment happened. I've been practicing my craft for about 7 years, 6 years at the time. And I was in another workshop, and it was a human interaction workshop, and they were talking about delivery. And the instructor in the middle of the class of 24 people said, you know, you're not really a trainer. You're not really he said, you're selling me something. And selling is different than educating. You're a little too slick and a little too manipulative. And it was a really interesting aha moment for me because, you know, at the time I'd already been, you know, doing sales training for the corporation we worked for 3-4 years. And I've been getting good marks, but I've been getting good marks from salespeople on my style. Right. But what was
so you were preaching to the choir. So what this guy was telling you was Rein, you're really preaching to the choir.
Right.
And you had come from, and let's step back. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but let's step back for a moment and refresh folks on your background. You had a strong culinary background, was an executive chef of several properties. Yeah. You then joined a food service distribution company as a salesperson and moved your way up. So you really understood selling from both the customer facing perspective and selling from the customer perspective. You really understood both sides of that coin. But now you're going into training and development and you're having to educate different types of people. Did that cause some inner turmoil within you? You mentioned that the instructor had said, you're selling me something. Was that an inner turmoil moment, or was that moment of, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board through reflection and introspection and figure out how to do this better?
Yeah. Yeah. It caused both, Brian. But he also stopped me. He says, Rein, you do a great job. It's a small change. It's just your intentions going into that. It's just a small change. And so what I became is it was more like I was focused on getting the objective done versus what can I provide for you? And you understood this as a salesperson because you did this very well. The focus needed to be more on the client than what I was trying, you know, while we have sales quota, I got to get so many people to buy this, right? You know, that was the type of focus. It was like, okay, what can I do? I was very proud of some of my sales accomplishments up to that point, right? And some of those things that I did, and the fact that I could convince somebody or influence somebody to do something, that was different, right? That was a different place. I do have to say that even in my sales background, I always had the customer's best interests in mind. But in this, in a training setting, what I did was soften, right, my approach and I stopped assuming that the people coming into the room were blank slates. And I looked at them as more as, right, they're not containers to be filled, but candles to be lit. The information, and you and I have had long discussions about this, the information is inside of people. Maybe not to the extent, you know, that it will be once they leave the classroom, but it's inside of there. And the more it comes from that learner, the more they go, it builds their confidence. Yeah. And right, they can apply it to what they already have.
Yeah. And I love what you said there. And I wrote down, and I'll put this in the show notes, the analogy of the candle. Mm-hmm. And Rein, I know in our mall, we have a Yankee Candle store, or you see these candle outlets and things like that. Every scent, even though they sell candles, What they're really selling is unique scents.
Yeah.
They're not selling candles. They're selling the fact that every scent that you can think of is available to you when you desire that. And I'll use this as an example. They even have movie theater popcorn candles. And so if you desire, you say, well, I really love the scent of hot buttered popcorn. You can have that scent through that candle. But again, you can smell that candle in the store and you go, oh, this is wonderful. You know, for the most of the ladies out there, oh, this is wonderful. But to your point, you're not going to get the true aroma of that candle until it's lit. And I love that analogy. That is so beautiful and brilliant. See, that's why I wanted you to do the chapter on uniqueness. You have such unique perspective on life and balance and training and development and things like that. And again, you're one of the most unique people I know, and it's because of those different perspectives. When you begin to light people around you, and that's what unique people do, they light up people around them through connection. How did delivering the message change for you?
Yeah. So I like that question. What I learned to do was, again, it's less about me and more about them. So we did a lot more, certainly the interactiveness and what can I draw from those, in not making it an environment where you had to, because you have people who are more introverted, right? Yeah. And it takes them a while to come up with that thought, or they're not that comfortable.
Rain, let me jump in here. You just said something, and I knew you would. You just said something incredibly brilliant, because when you're standing in front of people delivering anything, I don't care. We record this. I preached at my church last night. So for 20 minutes, the attention was on me, and I was delivering with all eyes on me and people watching on the internet and things like that. You go see a concert and you see a musician and the front man, all eyes are on them. Training a trainer, all eyes are, you and I are rabid baseball fans. Yeah. There, you would go, you're a Detroit Tigers fan. So back in the 60s, you would go in 68, you went to see Denny McClain. Because Denny McClain won 31 games that year. You went to see Al Kaline. Growing up as a Reds fan, I went to see Pete Rose and Johnny Bench and Eric Davis in the 80s. And there were stars that you went to see because of their unique talents and abilities. And I love what you said about, it's more about the people that I'm delivering to. It's more about the people I'm connecting with uniquely in that moment. I had to jump in there because you were just hitting on some brilliance there and really dialing in to how unique connection is one-on-one, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person. Can you take me to a unique moment that you had in training that really sticks out to you, where that really came to the forefront?
Interesting. I guess.
Or does it all run together over the years?
No. So early on, it was fun. And I think the storytelling element of stuff is what helped me tie in the learning to something that could impact them. And the closer they could relate to those stories. And so an early situation happened. I was originally asked to teach about imports, and that's what I was brought on to sell as a chef. I was brought on to sell the import program, and I had some great experiences doing that. And I remember talking about a story of selling the executive chef for Michigan State University, and how that all kind of came together through, oh gosh, you have a culinary background, so you do understand this stuff. Oh gosh, you went to Michigan State, so you understand where I'm coming from with this. The more I could relate to the customer with that, that ended up being a huge order because I could, hey, wait a minute, you're looking to do this. Do you know we actually have a product here that you could do that, and you don't have to create your own Melba sauce. We have a high quality Melba sauce, or we have several levels of products, crackers or whatever, chocolates, right? Our Calabat chocolate, and how many different semi-sweet or bittersweet and in all those items that we could actually do, and how it related to what they were doing. And if you buy this, right, yeah, it might be 50% more, but you can use half of this and get the same flavor profile. So I'm actually saving you. So the more I could talk on their level and relate to them, right, the more we got done. And that ended up being a great customer on that. So I also applied that to training, right? And just when I'm talking about that story, people's eyes lit up about, wow, I don't have to be as knowledgeable, but if I ask the chef, what would you see done with this? How would you be able to do, right? I turned it from, Rein, yeah, you can do that great. Can you ride with everybody, right? To do that because that's your strength, to here's how I can help you.
Yeah.
Sell this product as we're going forward. And that was an aha moment, I think, early on.
No, that's brilliant. Let's step aside, take a break. We come back, we'll get more into this uniqueness, and one of the most unique people I know, Rein Kansman. Come on back with us here on the Intentional Encourager podcast, special edition, the People Buy From People podcast series. Back in a moment.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton here. I want to tell you about our sponsor, SEO National. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. Now, what's that, you might say? Well, search engine optimization helps you show up higher on search engines in front of paying customers for words that you as a business owner can monetize. What a great concept. SEO National is owned by my good buddy Damon Burton, who's been a guest here on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Not only has Damon and his team worked with businesses of all sizes, from e-commerce startups to NBA teams and Shark Tank featured businesses, but more importantly, Damon and his team are about transparency, trust, and providing lifetime value. So much so that he still has his first customers after opening SEO National 14 years ago. Let me give you some intentional encouragement and call Damon and his team today at 855-736-6285 or go to www.seonational.com and get a free quote.
Rein, that reminds me of a similar situation where I went to Marshall University, and my first
Marshall.
Yeah, go Herd. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what Michigan State's fights, but both schools wear green and white. They're just different shades.
Go green, go white. That's what we say when we see somebody else, right?
Yeah, go green, go white. Well, let's go here for a sec. I don't want to share that you were talking about your experience with the executive chef at Michigan State. I remember going back after leaving Marshall and calling on the executive chef at Marshall. At that time, they were a Marriott school. They were run by Marriott. Marriott had a management company that did food service for these different schools.
Correct.
And so Chef Lewis was the guy there, and we just connected, and he would call me if he had a special party or something. He would just call me directly and go, hey, I need this, and this. And it was a national account for the distributor that I worked with. But I was constantly feeding him with ideas and feeding him with different things and different ways he could do things. And so when I had a new dessert that I'd gotten into stock, he was the first person I went to talk to and said, hey, this is an upscale cheesecake. This is an upscale pie line. I had Sara Lee, so we had an upscale line of desserts, and we had a Milky Way pie that was incredible. It was so good. And an Oreo cheesecake that was just dynamite. It was just incredible. And, that's, I had to sample them first before I made sure they were good for the customer.
Absolutely. You didn't want quality assurance.
No, but that same thing happened. And as you were talking about that connection, I remember my encounters with Chef Lewis and just creating that connection. And here's the thing, Rein, creating great connection builds great confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because again, when people understand what you do for them and the value that you see, I got to go here for a second. And you and I have talked about this as well, too. I believe this. I believe unique people understand their true value that they bring to every connection.
Mm-hmm.
They understand it. They know it very intimately. And value is hard to define because everyone defines value differently.
Right.
So let's go there for a second. When you think about the unique people that you've met in your life, what's the one thing that comes to mind immediately for you that you say to yourself, these people did this brilliantly?
Yeah. So early on in my career, there was a salesman, and he'd been at it for a while, but he had just a unique way of getting people's attention. And he went into this one pizza place that the gentleman was ready to kick off 2 or 3 franchises from it, and always busy, right? This guy was always busy, but he'd walked in to the counter. He said, "Hi, I'm Rick Basler. I'm from Cisco, and one day you're going to buy from me," and left his card on the counter and walked out. And he came back consistent. Consistency is your first chapter, right? Consistently, the same time on the same day for 4 or 5 weeks before the owner finally said, whoa, wait a minute. Where are you going? We need to talk about stuff. I mean, there was nothing else but him showing up, being there, and being confident about that. But it was very unique approach, and ended up being the major supplier for that gentleman going forward, right?
Yeah.
But just a unique approach, right?
Well, I'm jotting this down. The value of a unique approach.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Rein, because again, a lot of times in connection, we connect with people because of the way they approach us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Rein, let's go here. And you're the perfect person to talk with this about. We think of connection today as hitting a button on social media and saying, "Oh, I like what you do. I like what you're about. I'm going to connect with you." Instead of really understanding what true connection is all about. And that's why I wrote the book, People Buy From People, because, and I've told you, I've shared this privately with you, so I'll share it publicly with everyone else. I thought I was writing a sales book.
Yeah.
My dad had been a salesman for 40 plus years. I thought I was writing a sales book and incorporating his experience and my 20 plus years, 25 years now of sales experience. But I got halfway through the book and realized it was what my dad was telling me was about connection. And so it just automatically shifted. But people are approaching people to connect by just hitting a button. Oh, I see something there I like, or something like that, instead of really understand the unique power of connection. Do you remember the moment or something that triggered you, that you understood that concept? Because you're brilliant at that concept. You've always been brilliant at that concept. What was the moment for you where you truly understood uniquely connecting with people?
So I think there's going to be a couple here, Brian. The first one is just understanding how my parents brought me up to be very open and respectful of everybody, no matter what walk of life, where they came from, who they were, and they role modeled that for me. And so liking and appreciating others came really easy for me. And you know, I would learn by being open and wide open, trusting. I got burned sometimes, but 3 to 4 times the amount of times I got some wonderful gifts from people, right? By being open. So that was the first piece. Just staying open to the unique gifts that others would give us, right? The other was but I didn't know how to connect appropriately until I got certified in a program called Social Styles, which is a behavioral skills program. And by doing that, the concept there is that, different people like to be communicated with in different ways. And there's 4 basic styles, but beyond that, being able to identify that, Brian is more people focused because he shows a lot of emotion and you can read that in him, and he's more direct. So Brian would be in that expressive category. Therefore, Brian is more comfortable talking to somebody who's more expressive. And if that's my style, it's a real easy, natural fit.
And in the disc, in the disc model, which is
same thing, right?
Which is arguably the most popular one. I'm a high I.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
and expressive and I are the same. Yep.
It's straight up, because again, and I mean to interrupt you, Rein, but it's because I think the older I've gotten, the more I understand the value that powerful connection has in my life. When I was younger, I don't know that I was still that high I, but it was more of, let's see what I could get,
right,
instead of what I could give.
Yeah.
And now that I'm almost 50, I realize that now you feel like in Rein, let's just jump here for a minute. I believe this. I believe the older that you get, you start to transition to what I would call the impact zone. In other words, what impact do you want to have on people presently and leave with them in the future that will stay with them long after you're gone? I think I learned that most from my dad. And I really, about 8 years ago when my dad passed away, was when I really discovered the power of that impact zone. Because even to this day, people still say, man, I remember this, I remember this, I remember this. And it was that, for me, you talked about a few minutes ago, that aha moment.
Right.
Where the high I in me now, in that style, it is I look at that I and I say impact. To me, that high I represents impact. I want to leave people with a unique connecting experience, right? That they go, oh man, that I'm impacted by that. You are a lot the same way. And that's exactly why I wanted you to talk about uniqueness, because you're very intentional. You're another high I that we both have. You're intentional about impact, because I've watched you in one-on-one settings just continue to just go, what can I do for you? How can I impact you? What can I help you with? And you being so intentionally impactful about imparting, another I, understanding and helping that other person. You talked about your parents being so open, and I wrote something down: wide open trust.
Yep.
Do you feel like that's a unique characteristic, or do you feel like it's something that is replicatable, that other people can do that as well?
Yeah, I think it is replicatable, but also, there's so much psychological stuff that goes to that in people. I mean, it's several groups, and I have people who are just the exact opposite. They've been burned so much that they don't trust, or at least they verbally say they don't trust anyone, but they trust very, very few, and that's tough to change when you've been conditioned by your environment into that is a tough thing to change. So I'm blessed that I had that start that way. And I'm blessed that my wife's been like that, right? And so our relationship's been really easy in that way. And I really try and do things that don't challenge that. So I want to tie something in for a minute.
Go ahead. And then I've got something that I want to come back to what you just said about that.
So
please
part of that is, let's go back and let's say, yeah, again, high I, but I need to deal with somebody who's the exact opposite, a high C. And so I modify my style. I slow down a bit. I give a break in between, and my pace is slower in my delivery, and I'm more focused on factual things so that they feel more comfortable talking to me, right? That's the piece. Now, the intentional part that comes into that is why I'm doing that. We can do it to manipulate others, or we can do it to serve others. And that's the difference right there. My intention is, when I make those adjustments, which I've learned how to do in my style to make others comfortable, it's because I want us both to benefit from that relationship, not so that just Rein benefits, right? And that's the intentional piece. And more I do that, Brian, the more I build that trust, right? Or if I'm meeting somebody new, I don't burn that trust.
Well, and again, that's what I wanted to park on for just a moment before we take another break is, how do you uniquely connect with people who have had those burned experiences? Because a lot of people are the walls come up because they have had those, and we don't know. A lot of times we don't know those experiences, but yet that person does. And because they have been burned in the past, or they have had negative experiences in life that have shaped and framed how they view connection. Maybe they have trusted someone that deceived them. Right. They trusted someone that lied to them. Maybe it was a business partner that manipulated the finances and kind of left it. I had someone on my podcast the other day that it'll be releasing on the Intentional Encourager podcast. This lady in Australia, her and her husband had a business, and the accountant did things in their business that caused great negative harm in their business. And it's just, those experiences just begin to harden people sometimes. Rein, how do you uniquely connect with burned people?
So great. Carefully and transparently. I try and be as transparent as possible. I need to let you know I haven't been. It's hard. I want to understand more in order to build our relationship. And my main focus here is so that you feel that you can trust me. Let's take baby steps. Let's talk about it. You tell me where the boundaries are. And that's a big piece for people. Like, you tell me where the boundaries are. Let me know where we can play freely and what might bother you. Because there are some people that sarcastic humor is a big I tool, right? And between two high I's, we can be sarcastic with each other and it just bounces off.
Yeah.
But you get a high S and they feel hurt sometimes by that. And that could sit, they might not tell you they got hurt by it, but it'll show up, right? Because your trust level will go down. So understanding what that person's boundaries are and letting them say, you know what, I'm not ready to play yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready to play. Let me know when you're ready to build a little different relationship in that way. And you got to constantly do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. Constantly doing. And let's step aside and take a break. We come back. We're going to finish our conversation and go to some other areas about uniqueness and connecting uniquely. Rein Kansman, an endorser, People Buy From People, is my guest on this special edition of the Intentional Encourager podcast, the People Buy From People podcast series. Come on back in just a moment. Hey, everybody, Brian Sexton. Want to tell you about my new book, People Buy From People, 10 Powerful People Lessons from the Ultimate People Person, my dad. My dad was one of the greatest connectors that I ever knew. And he shared with me 10 connecting principles that I have used throughout my 25-year sales and sales management, customer engagement, and leadership career that I'm passing along to you. If you want to be a stronger, deeper, and more powerful connector, you've got to pick up a copy of People Buy From People. There are concepts in there that you may not realize help make you a power connector. You can go to Amazon and pick it up, Kindle if you're an e-reader and you like to do it that way, or now available on Audible. And there's one other way you can get a copy of People Buy From People. You can get one from me and I'll sign it for you. You go to intentionalmediaandpublishing@gmail.com and send me an email, and I'll share with you the link on how you can get a signed copy. You can buy a signed copy directly from me. Again, People Buy From People. If you want to connect like never before, pick up your copy today of People Buy From People. And now let's get back to more great conversation here on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Rain, I love what you said there, because I had someone that reached out to me yesterday that wanted me to write a review of their book. And here's what I said back to them. I said, look, because I value my word, and because I value giving you my word, I don't want to disappoint you, but here's my challenges of things that I have going on. It took me a long time because I am, one of the things about a high I is they hate to disappoint people.
Yeah.
And they want to say yes to everything. And they go, well, you asked me, and and they just feel this sense of, I got asked, so I got to respond and I got to do it. Yeah. And I just said, because I'm someone that values honoring my word to you, I'm going to have to decline your invitation. But here's what I will do. I'll give you some intentional encouragement right here, right now, that may help you. And I said, look, when you hold your book in your hand for the first time, and that you've written 2 books, it's a feeling you can't describe. Take that feeling in, enjoy that feeling in the moment. And so I didn't want to over promise and under deliver, but still being true to the gratitude of thank you for asking me. I just don't, because the last thing that I want to do is tell someone I'm going to do something and not do it. I get forgetful. We all get forgetful, but there's a difference in being forgetful and dropping the ball.
Yes.
And a lot of times what happens is, with the analogy, I'll use a football analogy. A lot of times a guy is running down the field before he ever catches the pass.
Mm-hmm.
What's more important, running down the field or catching the ball? And so that's and I love what you said there about keeping your word. That is a trait of unique people. They are almost in a sense bound to their word. You mentioned your parents and the impact of your parents. Was that ingrained in you from an early age about being true to your word?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that in my teen years, I was not good at it. And I felt a guilt from that time that stayed with me for a long time. I wasn't being honest. I wasn't being upfront. I wasn't being this. And it was more the time where I was looking for, I guess, expanding my independence, covering up for some bad choices I made at that time, right?
Yeah.
But Brian, that with my parents, I felt that, gosh, why did I do that to these people who gave me so many wonderful gifts? And I think that drove me to make those changes in the future where that's an absolute, because I want it to be, not because I have I have to make it be, but I want it to be. I want to be a person that people can count on, that people can believe, that people can look up to.
Rain, and it boggles me. It really boggles my mind, because my dad always told me, if you say it, own it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote that in the book. But yet in our society today, we seem to have lost the concept of the how unique a person's word is.
Oh yeah.
In a connecting relationship. And let's keep in mind, and you and I are old enough to remember when deals were done on a handshake.
Oh yeah.
Even as, you know, even as far back as 20, 25 years ago, we didn't have nearly the paperwork. Like when we set up a new customer, it was a 2-page sheet.
Right.
Really simple, really easy. Now you almost have to have multiple pages of contract and
lawyers.
And things. Yeah, exactly. And they're really intense legal documents now, because people have a hard time keeping that. You and I could tell stories for an hour of customers that we called on, and we would say, hey, I'm going to need a check today before we can get that order out. Well, I have a check. Then you call your credit manager, go, well, so-and-so told me they'd have a check. Will you release that order? Your credit manager releases that order, and your customer goes, oh, I forgot. Yeah. They didn't forget. They didn't forget. They just wanted, they just needed to tell you that to get that order out the door. They needed that. And you have to understand, and I've said this, and I don't mean to go long-winded here.
No.
But it's smoke screens. And what I've always told people is, I said, look, the longer that you are in sales, I'm going to talk to the salespeople and business people for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
The longer you're in sales, one thing you have to learn how to do is you have to flush out smoke screens.
Right.
You have to understand what's truth and what's a smoke screen.
Mm-hmm.
And Rain, I'll tell you this because you'll know it so well when I say it. Something that I have said too is, I said, look, when you're negotiating with a customer will flow out. A customer will give you a smoke screen,
right?
And hoping that it's not something that they need to make the deal happen. It's something they would love to have, and they put it out there as a smokescreen, making you think that it's a must-have. So then you compromise and you go, well, we have to give this to this customer. They're not going to buy from us. When in actuality, it was a smokescreen.
Right.
It was a wish list. They were already going to buy. They just wanted to see what else they could get.
Yeah.
And so, you have to uniquely understand people. I want to go here for just a minute. What changed in you personally when you discovered the unique gifts and abilities that your parents had given you? And I saw the love in your eyes. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that. You've talked about lovingly your mom and dad. Mm-hmm. Still with us. Still very much with us. Still very much a part of your life. Still pouring into you, even to this day. Take me through when you understood the unique gifts that your parents had given you.
Well, when I started, I guess, branching out, it was more when I started working. And I started realizing that what I had wasn't normal. I mean, I thought, because you grow up watching back then, Ozzie and Harriet, the Donna Reed show, and the families, the Leave It to Beaver, and, the mom and dad were always very nice to their kids and blah, blah, and all that kind of stuff. And growing up, realizing once I started meeting other people outside of my bubble, right, that they didn't have that same support. They didn't have, and some of them didn't have two parents, they had one, or you know, one parent had an issue, and the things that people had to go through. I think that was a striking moment when I realized, wow, I was blessed. And to this day, I'm blessed as I went through that. That was an aha moment for me, because it also gave me, Brian, that idea that, okay, there are people out here that didn't get the same benefits you have. You need to help them understand what you got and the perspective that you got. You need to give them that, you know, as much as you can. And so, yeah, that open, trusting, appreciating others and the unique gifts that they bring in, and looking for that in people, right? When you and I met, you were easy to pick out from the crowd. You were very unique, Brian, and that stood out. I mean, by the time I met you, I'd been doing training with hundreds of salespeople from that corporation,
yeah,
for 15 years already, right? I had met, oh gosh, probably 1,400 salespeople from that corporation. And you were one of a handful that stood out. And that was 15 years in.
Yeah.
That uniqueness made a difference. And again, I have several long friends like you from that corporation that were very unique in that way. So uniqueness does make a difference in a positive way.
Yeah.
Right? In a positive way. Think about Tiny Tim as an entertainer, right? He had one song that I know of. He made a career out of one, but he was unique. He was different than anything else that was out there. And if you take that and use that uniqueness to help others like you did, that's special.
I gotta ask you one thing real quick. We talked about your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to ask you as a parent.
Yep.
Yourself. You have kids, you have grandchildren now. What are you imparting to them uniquely, or what have you imparted to them uniquely throughout the course of their life to try to impact them the way your parents impacted you?
Knowing that whatever they do, whatever they choose, whatever decision they make, I love them and I'm going to support them. That was the biggest thing. I mean, to this day, my parents are like, oh man, I'll send them a copy of this because they'll love to see it. They'll love to see oh, Rain, that was so much fun watching, right? To this day, and I'm going to be 65 this year. How do you get 65 years of that kind of support?
You've got good Scandinavian genes, my friend.
Yes, I do. And so, to that same thing with my children, I want them to know that they are special and unique, and that I will always be there to support them as they go through this. That's the biggest. And then the same thing with our grandson, who turned one a couple months ago. The same thing. I want him to be able to. We'll see him this afternoon. Actually, today's one of our days. We get to visit with Luca. And I want him to continue when he shows up and sees me to smile. When I make a duck sound and it to just smile and know, hey, that's Grandpa, or in my language, Vana Isa. That's my Vana Isa, and I love being around him.
Yeah. I venture to say the first words that will come out of his little mouth will be "get life in balance."
I'll have to work on that one, Brian.
Yeah, he'll be dropping that on his parents, and then
I love it.
Yeah. So I finish out every Intentional Encourager podcast with this. We're going to modify it a little bit for the People Buy From People series.
Yep.
But leave folks with your biggest piece of intentional encouragement around being unique.
So yeah, don't people like to conform, right? And conformity in some areas brings safety, which is great. But where you can really blow out those things, those special gifts that you've been given. People want to see those. Believe me, people want to see those special gifts. Don't undervalue them. Understand what impact that they make and use it for the right reason. Use it for helping grow relationships between you and those that you meet, love, respect. And wow, you'll hear some special. I heard several special things just today on this broadcast from my friend, and I hear those, and those mean a lot, especially when you get to be my age.
Yeah. It really does, and I find myself waxing more philosophically as I approach my 50s.
Yeah.
And you understand, and I was commenting on a post today on LinkedIn, and I said, someone had posted about, what if you had 6 months to live?
Oh.
And my thought, and I said, look, having lost my dad suddenly, and I write about it in People Buy From People. Having lost my dad suddenly, I realized that just be consistent every day.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it, because if I had 6 months to live, I would be figuring out, okay, where haven't I gone that I want to go? And I would try to figure out all these things I want to do and all these people I want to see and tell people goodbye and things like that. And I thought to myself, that is so taxing. You can't do it all. You couldn't do it all.
Right.
But what you can do is be consistent and unique every day, so that when something happens, people can go, there was a unique person. And I have spent the last however long we've been recording during this conversation with one of the most unique people that I know, the perfect person to talk about uniqueness. Rein, remind folks again how they can get your resources, tell them where they can connect with you, because I know when people hear this podcast, they're going to be drawn to the unique company that you have and the unique person that you are.
So, getlifeandbalance.com is my website, and there's a lot of great information and ways to contact me there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Rein Kansman on LinkedIn, Facebook. Life and Balance has a page on Facebook. And those are the best ways. You can email me at rein@getlifeandbalance.com, and then it has phone numbers and even a way to get on my calendar if it's something that you want to talk to me about. But love the conversations, love the opportunity to meet people, and thanks for this opportunity, my friend.
It was an absolute no-brainer that you had to be one of the endorsers of this book because of your impact on me, and you embody that concept of people buy from people. So Rein, again, I have so enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for joining me on this special edition of the Intentional Encourager podcast, the People Buy From People series. Rein, you're the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you, my friend.
I appreciate you. My thanks as always to producer Bryce Sexton and technical advisor Matt Means. And of course, the ultimate thanks goes to the Lord Jesus Christ, who provides intentional encouragement every day through his word. If you're not subscribed to the Intentional Encourager podcast, hit the subscribe button wherever you get podcasts so you don't miss an exciting episode where you can get encouraged and stay encouraged. And remember, anyone, anywhere, at any time, any place can be an intentional encourager.